This is Auschwitz 1 where I am right now. I'm in between two fence lines here. These were electrified barbed wire fences to keep people imprisoned. This was part of the largest killing center for the Nazis. We're talking cramped bunks where you had two people in a bed. This is now a museum and a memorial and proof of the Nazis' crimes 80 years ago. The things you see here are heartbreaking. There are piles of eyeglasses, piles of shoes, there are suitcases, there are clothes. And we can show all of that on camera, but what we can't show are the piles of human hair. The braids that make you think these were little girls' hair, shaved from their heads. This is what's left of one of the crematoria and one of the gas chambers. The Nazis tried to destroy proof of what they'd done, but they could not get rid of all of the evidence. This is where hundreds of thousands of people were brought on train cars like these. These are cattle cars. There's no bathroom. They weren't given any food. They spent days on here. And when they arrived, they did not know that most of them were about to be murdered. They did what's called a selection here. The SS, a special group of Nazis, would figure out who was going to live and who was going to die immediately. Children, the elderly, disabled, killed. If you were old enough, strong enough to work, you might be selected to live. Of the roughly 1 million Jews who were killed at Auschwitz, about 900,000 were immediately sent to the gas chambers. They didn't have a chance to work. They didn't have a chance to try to live. Heads of state are visiting, including King Charles, but they are not being given an opportunity to speak. This is about hearing from the survivors while we still can. This is Auschwitz, where the Nazis killed roughly 1 million people just because they were Jews. Right over there. That's a gas chamber. It wasn't just Jews killed here. Poles were killed here. Soviet prisoners of war were killed here. Roma, Sinti, gay men. Most of the people who were brought to this camp and the other camps in the Auschwitz complex were looking at an almost, if not immediate, death sentence. Monday marks 80 years since the liberation of Auschwitz by Soviet troops. This may be one of the last times, if not the last time, that a large group of Holocaust survivors, of Auschwitz survivors, is able to return here to commemorate what happened.
There were over 1 million Jewish people killed in Auschwitz alone. So this is kind of a sacred ground, the biggest burial of Jews in the world.
Michael Bornstein somehow escaped the gas chambers, the firing squads inside this death camp. You can see him here, a 4-year-old prisoner of Auschwitz. Now, 80 years later, Bornstein returns, not by force, but by choice.
And it's also important for me to show the world, the bigotry and the hatred that went on in Auschwitz.
Around 50 survivors have gathered here 8 decades after their liberation.
Telling their story, and it's a way that people never forget what happened. And in a few years, there'll be no survivors.
And as their voices begin to fade, the work inside this restricted area of the camp, where cameras are rarely allowed, becomes even more crucial. Conservationists and scientists inside this high-tech lab preserving the history here. Thousands of items cataloged, stored in climate-controlled rooms, and with the words of survivors, the story of Auschwitz will never really be complete.
Because there is this darkness that will never be told, because most of the people who were deported to Auschwitz did not survive this place. They were murdered. Most of them never became prisoners of the concentration camp. They were murdered immediately after arrival in gas chambers.
This place, a memorial and museum dedicated to their memory.
I was 2 years old. It was very small because the whole arm was small.
They did this to you at 2 years old?
Yes, younger, 1 month younger. A, 26,959. My mother and 8. My 9 is after 8.
One after the other.
Because the parents was get tattoos before the children. This is the special order from the Nazis.
I know some people have gotten tattoos removed. Why have you not gotten rid of that?
Because it's belonged to me. I know me. just with this number.
80 years later, why go back?
For me, he's a service.
So this is not only the biggest cemetery from a historical perspective, but it's also a really important part because so many of her family members died. So this is a way to try to retain some connection, even though she doesn't remember them.
What do young people need to know about what happened to you and millions like yourself?
They have to know that it's true. You know, because it's so unbelievable that nobody can believe this. It's so that they want to see my number because they have no
Idea?
no picture in the brains, and it is possible to make tattoos for small children, for children, adults, old, everything. You have degradation. You are just a number. But this number is not only on the skin. It's deeper.